Nobody is coming to save you.
Not your parents.
Not your friends. Not the world.
And the truth is, the world doesn't stop while you wait for it. You have to take action every single day to become the person you are meant to be. Every morning he woke up,
staring at a mirror that reflected nothing but weakness.
And every morning he promised himself that he would not let this version of him survive another day.
He would fight. He would push.
He would endure. Because no one else would do it for him. David Goggins' childhood was far from easy.
A home filled with fear, pain, and abuse.
The kind of life that would crush most boys before they even grew into men.
And yet, somewhere deep inside,
a spark remained.
A spark that refused to die. A spark that whispered, "You can be more. You can endure. You can overcome."
Overweight, insecure, ashamed of who he was, working nights spraying cockroaches in restaurants,
feeling trapped,
feeling small, feeling like the world had decided his fate. Yet every night he lay awake thinking, there has to be more.
There has to be a way.
There has to be a path out of this misery. Every morning the mirror stared back at him with unrelenting honesty, reflecting every excuse he had ever made, every failure he had ever suffered, every ounce of weakness he had allowed to define him.
And he realized
that nobody was coming to rescue him, that no one would forgive him for staying the same, that the only person who could save him
was himself.
Until one night, everything changed.
He snapped.
He could no longer ignore the brutal truth. The world would not wait for him. It would not slow down for him. It would not guide him. He had to act. He had to fight.
He had to endure. And he knew.
From that moment forward, he would never quit. He called it the accountability mirror. And every night, he faced it without compromise. He told himself, you are lazy.
You are weak.
You are fat.
And you're the only one who can change it.
And every night he held himself accountable, because if he didn't, nobody else would.
That night, he ran his first mile, barely able to breathe, lungs burning, legs screaming.
Yet he ran because he had no other choice. The pain became his teacher. The exhaustion became his mentor. And with every step, he discovered a small fraction of the strength that was already inside him, waiting for him to claim it.
And then he ran again and again, mile after mile, night after night.
Until the voice that told him to quit was drowned out by the voice that whispered,
you are unstoppable.
You are resilient.
You are Goggins.
He learned that the mind breaks long before the body does. That pain is not a signal to stop.
It is a signal, a test, a question, asking, how badly do you want this? And he chose every single day to answer.
With relentless effort, with discipline,
with endurance.
Every morning he looked in that mirror.
And the reflection
was a little less ashamed.
A little stronger, a little more alive. And slowly,
very slowly, the man who once felt broken began to rebuild himself into someone who would never rely on anyone else, someone who would push past limits, someone who would endure,
because nobody
is coming to save him. He began adding small challenges, small punishments for laziness, small tests for endurance, push-ups until his arms burned,
runs until his legs gave out, cold showers,
early wake-ups,
strict diet.
Every action a choice to sculpt himself, to carve strength from weakness, to transform pain into power. And every night the mirror reminded him, the voice in his head, the pain in his body.
It all meant something.
It was training. It was shaping. It was preparing him for the life he had been denied, for the man he was destined to become.
And then he ran longer and harder.
Into nights that were colder.
Roads that were lonelier. His body screaming,
his mind begging, and every step he told himself,
This is nothing.
"You are stronger than this."
Endure, persist, conquer. Every failure became a lesson,
Every rejection,
a fuel. Every hardship, a teacher.
and slowly, the man who once felt powerless felt power coursing through him, the strength that comes only from facing oneself without excuses, without mercy, without compromise. This is where the transformation began, where the ordinary became extraordinary, where weakness became strength, where fear became fuel,
And where David Goggins
started the journey to becoming unstoppable. The mirror had become his battlefield, and his reflection, his greatest enemy. Every day, David Goggins fought against the same man staring back at him. The man who wanted to quit. The man who wanted comfort. The man who whispered, "It's too hard." But he didn't listen. He had spent too many years listening to that voice, and it had brought him nothing but pain, regret, and disappointment. One morning after another brutal run, sweat soaking his shirt, lungs burning, he stood in front of that mirror again and asked himself a question that would change his life forever. What if? What if I could become the hardest man alive?
not the richest, not the smartest,
But the hardest,
mentally, physically, spiritually.
the man who would not break, no matter what life threw his way. From that moment on, his life became a test of endurance. Every day was a war between who he was and who he could be, between weakness and strength, between comfort and growth, between the easy path and the path no one else dared to walk. He began waking up at 4 a.m., running for miles before the sun even rose. While the rest of the world was still asleep, he was already bleeding, sweating, pushing, fighting.
And in that solitude, in that darkness,
He found something that most people never discover. He found his true self. Pain became his companion,
his teacher,
his friend,
and every drop of sweat that hit the floor,
was a reminder that he was still alive.
still capable, still in control.
The world didn't care about his excuses anymore, and neither did he. He learned to embrace discomfort,
To love the grind.
to find beauty in suffering, because suffering meant growth. Suffering meant evolution. Suffering meant freedom. But he wanted more. He didn't just want to be fit.
He wanted to be unbreakable, and that's when he saw it.
A commercial for the United States Navy SEALs. Men pushing their bodies to the edge.
Crawling through mud.
Running on broken legs. Swimming in freezing waters. They called it Hell Week. And to Goggins,
It wasn't hell, it was heaven.
because he knew if he could survive that, if he could endure what they called impossible, he would never fear anything again. He picked up the phone, dialed the recruiter.
And the man on the other end laughed.
"You weigh 300 pounds, son. You'll never make it." But Goggins didn't hang up. He didn't cry. He didn't quit. He said, "Tell me what I need to do." The recruiter gave him 3 months.
Lose over 100 pounds.
Or don't even bother showing up. For most people, that would be the end of the story.
But for Goggins,
It was just the beginning. For 3 months, he lived like a man possessed. He woke before sunrise, biked 25 miles before breakfast, ran 10 miles after work, lifted weights until his arms couldn't move. He ate nothing but lean chicken and vegetables. No sugar, no comfort food, no distractions.
every day he looked in the mirror and saw the fat melting away.
But what he was truly burning,
Was weakness. His body began to change.
but his mind changed faster. Because every time he wanted to quit,
Every time he wanted to stop,
he heard that voice again.
nobody is coming to save you. And that voice drove him forward.
3 months later, he stood on the Navy SEALs scale. 190 pounds of muscle, focus and pain. He didn't just lose weight,
He lost his old identity.
The weak man was gone. What stood in his place was someone forged in suffering, someone who had calloused his mind. When training began, the instructors tried to break him.
Freezing water,
Sleepless nights,
brutal workouts, screaming sergeants, every hour designed to destroy him.
but what they didn't know was that Goggins had already been broken.
Long before he got there. And that's what made him different.
Pain didn't scare him anymore. It was familiar. It was home. While others begged to quit, he whispered to himself,
I'm not leaving. You'll have to kill me first. And when he made it through Hell Week, barely alive but still standing, he didn't celebrate. He didn't cheer.
He just looked up at the sky and said, now we begin. Because the truth is, the journey doesn't end when you reach the goal. It starts when you realize how far you can go.
And Goggins wasn't chasing medals or ranks. He was chasing mastery.
Mastery of the one thing that controls everything. The mind, he called it callousing the mind. Just like your hands toughen when you lift heavy weight, your mind toughens when you face hard times.
Pain, repetition, adversity, failure.
These were no longer his enemies. They were the tools that built him. He realized something most people never understand. Comfort is the enemy of greatness. And the moment you stop seeking challenge,
You start dying inside.
so he pushed harder.
Further, longer. Each mile was a conversation with himself. How far can you go before you break? How much can you take before you quit? And every time he reached that breaking point,
He smiled, because that's where he truly lived. The mind is a battlefield.
and most people surrender long before the fight even begins.
But Goggins,
He thrived there,
in that war zone,
in that chaos.
because every time he overcame himself, he killed another piece of weakness and gave birth to another version of strength.
Every challenge became an opportunity, every obstacle a gift.
Because if it didn't challenge him, it didn't change him. When people ask him how he did it, how he went from a broken boy to a Navy SEAL, an ultra-marathon runner, a world record holder, he smiles and says,
I suffered.
I embraced pain.
I calloused my mind. And that's the truth most people don't want to hear.
You can't grow without pain. You can't evolve without struggle. You can't find strength without suffering. The question is not how much pain you can endure. The question is, how much pain are you willing to endure to become who you're meant to be? For David Goggins,
Pain was the path,
the teacher,
the truth.
and as he stood there, exhausted and broken but undefeated,
He realized
he had finally become the man he saw in that mirror. Not perfect, but unbreakable.
they say the body has limits.
That there's only so far a human being can go.
But what if that's not true?
What if your limits?
Are just lies your mind tells you.
David Goggins learned that lesson the hard way, because pain never stopped him. Doubt did. And once he silenced doubt, once he looked fear straight in the eye and said, "You don't own me anymore," everything changed. One day, after completing a brutal Navy SEAL mission, Goggins went for a casual run, 10 miles just to clear his mind. Halfway through, his knees screamed, his legs cramped, his lungs begged for mercy. Most people would stop,
Call it a day.
but Goggins didn't stop. He asked himself one question: what if I have more?
That's when it hit him.
Most people quit when they're only at 40% of their true capacity. When your mind screams, "I'm done," your body still has 60% left. The 40% rule was born not in a lab, not in theory, but in pain, sweat, and blood.
Because when you think you're broken, you're not even close.
You've just reached the point where most people quit.
And that's where the real work begins.
Goggins started to test this idea everywhere.
On 100-mile races, on pull-up world records,
During military operations, He learned to treat the mind like a muscle, one that could be trained, strengthened, and hardened through repetition. Each run wasn't about speed anymore. It was about discovering where the mind ends and the spirit begins. During one ultramarathon,
100 miles of pure hell.
his legs locked up, his feet bled, and his body refused to move. He collapsed. Doctors told him to stop. He looked up
Eyes full of pain.
and said, "I'm not done yet." He stood up, 1 inch at a time, 1 breath at a time,
And he finished that race, not because he was the strongest,
but because he refused to let the mind win. He learned that when pain comes, it's not a signal to stop. It's an invitation to rise.
every ache, every burn, every tear.
Is the body's way of asking, "How bad do you want this?" And Goggins' answer was always the same: more than anything. The mind will always choose the easy path.
It will always whisper, rest and slow down, it's okay to quit. But that voice, that comfort,
It's a liar, because comfort doesn't build champions.
pain does. Goggins once said,
You're not training to be better than others. You're training to be better than who you were yesterday. That's the war. Not against the world, but against yourself. Every morning he woke up and faced the same battle. The bed felt warm. The air was cold. The voice inside said, "Stay." But the warrior inside said, "Move." And that's the essence of mental toughness. Doing what you don't want to do
on the days you don't want to do it.
because your purpose demands it. Discipline over emotion. Purpose over comfort. Growth over excuses in life.
People are always searching for motivation.
Waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect time, the perfect energy. But Goggins understood something deeper. Motivation is fragile.
It dies the moment pain arrives.
What you need is discipline. Discipline stays when motivation fades. Discipline moves you forward when your body begs to stop. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you could be. When Goggins trains, it's not about the miles or the medals. It's about mastering the voice within. The one that says you can't. The one that says you're not enough. The one that says quit. He learned to recognize that voice.
And talk back to it.
You say, "I can't."
Watch me. You say it's impossible, I'll show you possible. You say it's over,
I'm just getting started. That's how you callous your mind. Not by reading quotes or watching videos, but by facing the storm.
head on every single day.
Because the storm is not your enemy. It's your training ground. The rain, the pain,
The exhaustion.
they're all preparing you for moments when life hits hardest. There will be days when everything goes wrong,
When your plans fall apart.
when your energy's gone.
And in those moments,
Most people break, but the few who don't, the few who keep going, those are the ones who rise above. That's what Goggins calls staying hard. It's not about arrogance.
it's about endurance.
It's about refusing to surrender, no matter the odds, because somewhere inside you, there's a version of yourself who refuses to quit.
And your job?
Is to find him.
Every day,
You have 2 choices. You can listen to the voice that wants comfort.
or the one that demands greatness.
You can live as a victim of your excuses, or as a warrior of your purpose. The choice is yours.
And every choice builds your mind.
The 40% rule isn't just a number, it's a mindset,
A challenge.
a reminder that you are far more capable than you've ever believed.
Because when you think you've given everything, you've barely begun. Push past that wall.
Break through that pain.
Keep running when your legs shake.
Keep fighting when your heart screams enough. Because beyond that point lies greatness. The next time you want to quit,
Remember this, you're not done. You're just at 40%. And the other 60%,
is where your story begins.
In every heartbeat, in every breath, in every moment of struggle lies a choice to stop
Or to keep going, to surrender or to rise,
to be ordinary.
or to become extraordinary. For David Goggins, the answer was always the same. Stay hard.
Every battle, every mile, every scar.
Was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving one thing, that he was still alive inside. Because when you've walked through darkness, when you've faced every fear that tried to break you, you begin to realize something powerful. The real war was never out there. The real war was always inside. For David Goggins, the medals, the titles, the achievements, none of it mattered. What mattered was the man he became in the process. The man who refused to quit when everyone else did. The man who turned pain into power and suffering into strength. Because life doesn't reward the talented.
Life rewards the relentless.
Most people think success is about winning, but the truth?
It's about surviving. Surviving the doubt.
Surviving the pain. Surviving the quiet nights when no one's watching.
And you want to give up.
But you don't. That's where greatness is born, in the moments nobody sees. Goggins learned to live in those moments. The darkness didn't scare him anymore. It sharpened him. It revealed who he truly was.
Because when the lights go out,
When the crowd disappears, when the applause fades, the only voice that remains
is your own.
He used to look in that mirror, the accountability mirror, and see a man he hated.
Now he looks and sees a man who earned every scar.
A man who bled for his own transformation, not gifted,
Not chosen.
just a man who refused to die without fighting back.
That's what this journey was always about.
Not perfection, not fame, but ownership.
You don't get to choose your pain in life.
But you do get to choose what it means. For Goggins, pain was the doorway.
Every time he stepped through it,
He came out stronger. Every scar told a story. Every failure became a lesson. Every setback became a weapon.
and slowly,
He became unstoppable.
that's the secret he learned. Greatness is not about never falling.
It's about refusing to stay down. When he failed the pull-up world record attempt, he didn't quit. He came back. He broke it. 4 through 30 pull-ups in 17 hours. Not because he wanted a title, but because he wanted to prove that the human mind,
Has no limits.
you can't fake that. You can't buy it. You earn it through pain, repetition, and self-respect. He wasn't born different. He built himself different.
And that's what he wants you to know.
You don't need special genetics. You don't need permission.
You just need to decide.
Decide that you've had enough of being average. Decide that your comfort zone has taken enough from you. Decide that you'll no longer be a prisoner of your own excuses. Because the truth is,
Nobody's coming to save you.
not your parents,
Not your friends.
not your boss,
Not your coach.
it's you. That's the fight. That's the battlefield.
Every morning you wake up.
You step into that war.
And whether you win or lose,
Depends on the choices you make when no one's watching.
most people spend their whole life avoiding pain.
Goggins ran toward it because he knew if you can master pain, you can master anything.
He used to say,
When you think you've given everything, you're only at 40%. The rest is waiting for you. On the other side of pain, that's not just motivation.
that's a way of life.
Pain is the path to power. Discipline is the path to freedom,
And suffering.
is the birthplace of greatness. The question is, how far are you willing to go?
How much are you willing to endure?
For the life you truly want? Because if you keep doing what's easy,
You'll live a life that's hard.
but if you do what's hard, you'll live a life that's legendary. When David Goggins runs today,
It's not for medals or cameras.
it's for the man in the mirror. The one who still remembers where he came from. The one who still feels the pain that built him. The one who never stopped fighting.
That's his legacy.
To remind the world that ordinary people,
Can do extraordinary things.
when they stop negotiating with their excuses,
Maybe you're listening right now, tired, broken, lost.
wondering if you'll ever make it. Maybe you've failed 100 times.
Maybe your dreams feel too far away.
But listen,
You're not done yet. You're just getting started.
your pain is not your punishment. It's your preparation.
Every setback, every heartbreak, every sleepless night.
Is shaping you into someone unstoppable. Don't run from it. Embrace it.
Because one day,
When you look back, you'll realize that all the pain was worth it, that every scar was a stepping stone, that every failure was a lesson, that every tear was the price of strength,
the only thing that matters
is that you didn't quit. In the end, greatness doesn't belong to the chosen few. It belongs to those who choose to suffer now, so they can live free later. Goggins became that man, not because he wanted to inspire others, but because he refused to die ordinary.
So when life gets hard,
When your mind tells you to stop,
when you think you've hit your limit,
remember his words. You don't stop when you're tired. You stop when you're done. And even then,
even when it's over,
you look in the mirror.
and whisper one thing to yourself.
Stay hard.